Burt Lancaster. A towering figure of raw masculinity in Hollywood's golden age. He was the tough guy, the romantic lead, a picture-perfect example of American manhood, forged in the fiery crucible of the studio system. He was a circus acrobat who became a king of the silver screen, a man whose intense physical presence and brilliant smile practically defined an era of filmmaking. But behind that carefully crafted image, behind the managed headlines and the publicity shots with glamorous starlets, there was a secret life he kept locked away for decades, a life that, if it ever got out, could have completely destroyed him and shattered the foundations of his entire career. Then, in his final years, with his health failing and nothing left to lose, a story began to circulate. Legends say that Lancaster finally broke his silence, choosing to unveil the truth about his forbidden romances. The passionate and dangerous affairs he carried on with some of old Hollywood's biggest, and most beloved, male stars. This is the story of the men he was rumored to have loved in secret, the immense risks they all took, and the truth that Hollywood fought tooth and nail to keep buried for more than half a century. To really get the sheer size of Burt Lancaster's secrets, you have to understand the world he lived in. The Hollywood of the 1940s and 50s wasn't just an industry, it was a kingdom, ruled by powerful studio moguls who were architects of fantasy. They didn't just make movies, they made stars. They built personas from the ground up, crafting public images that were as fake as any film set. And at the very heart of this grand illusion was a rigid, unbending moral code. This was the era of the production code, you might know it as the Hays Code, a set of brutal censorship rules that dictated what you could and couldn't see on screen. But its influence bled way beyond the movies. It created a culture of suffocating conservatism where any step outside the norm was seen as a threat. The center of this universe was the ideal of the all-American man. He was strong, he was decisive, and he was always into women. Actors like John Wayne, Clark Gable, and of course, Burt Lancaster, were the high priests of this cinematic religion. Lancaster, with his athletic build honed by years as a circus performer and that fiercely intense gaze, was maybe its most perfect specimen. He exploded onto the scene in 1946 in The Killers, and an icon was born overnight. He was raw, powerful, and undeniably male. The studios, and especially the infamous gossip columnists like Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons, who were basically the industry's moral police, went to insane lengths to protect and promote this image. Their columns were the social media of the day, and they could make or break a career with a single sentence. An actor's private life wasn't their own. It was a studio asset, something to be managed and, when necessary, totally fabricated. Actors were bound by morality clauses, which let studios fire them for any behavior that might cause bad press. And in the middle of the 20th century, no behavior was more condemned, more career-ending, than being gay. It was a crime in many states, called a mental illness by doctors, and seen as a profound sin by the public. For an actor whose entire job depended on being adored, whose fantasy image was supposed to be attainable, being outed wasn't just a scandal, it was a death sentence for their career. This was the gilded cage where stars like Burt Lancaster lived. They were handed wealth, fame, and adoration, but in exchange, they had to give up their real selves. They were forced into a double life, a nerve-shredding existence of constantly looking over their shoulder, using coded language, and living with a gnawing fear. Secret relationships happened in the shadows, in private homes and secluded bungalows, arranged through a trusted network of insiders who knew how to keep a secret. Many gay actors were famously pushed into lavender marriages, total sham weddings to women, often arranged by the studios themselves, to give off a respectable, heterosexual vibe. These marriages were meant to kill rumors and project a happy family image, all while the actor's true heart was hidden from the world. It was a world of deep hypocrisy, where the men celebrated on screen as heroes were forced into lives of deception the moment the cameras stopped rolling. The emotional toll of this constant act was immense, leading to isolation, anxiety, and a deep-seated fear of exposure that haunted them every single day. For decades, Burt Lancaster played his part perfectly. He was married 3 times, had 5 children, and his public image was that of a devoted family man. Though one with a notoriously fiery temper and a healthy love life with some of Hollywood's most beautiful women. He was linked to Shelley Winters, Joan Crawford, and Marlene Dietrich. These relationships were public, celebrated, and exactly what the studios and audiences wanted to see. His real private life, the one lived away from the flashbulbs, remained a fortress, but even fortresses can crumble. As the golden age faded and the studio system lost its iron grip, as society began its slow, painful evolution, the secrets of old Hollywood started to seep out. Then, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, as Lancaster faced the end of his life, after a debilitating stroke had stolen his iconic voice and mobility, the story gets complicated. It's crucial to be clear here. There are no recorded interviews, no tell-all memoirs written by Lancaster himself confirming any of this. Instead, the narrative of his confession has been pieced together from controversial insider accounts and retrospective reports that have surfaced in the years since his death. The story goes that Lancaster, no longer needing to protect his career or his image, finally gave himself the freedom to speak plainly about the men he'd loved. These were not public declarations. He allegedly spoke about the crushing emotional weight of living a double life, a burden he had carried for over 50 years. Why would he do it? Maybe he wanted to set the record straight, to reclaim a piece of himself that had been violently suppressed for his entire adult life. Or maybe it was a final act of defiance against the system that made him a star but demanded his soul in return. Or perhaps, in the quiet final days of a long life, he felt the stories of these hidden relationships deserved to be acknowledged, even if just to a small, trusted circle. Whatever the reason, these alleged confessions paint a radical new portrait of Burt Lancaster. They transform him from a simple icon of masculinity into a far more complex, tragic, and ultimately, more human figure, a man caught between the demands of his time and the desires of his heart. While mainstream biographers remain silent or deeply skeptical, citing the total lack of definitive proof, the persistence of these rumors offers a compelling, alternative history of one of Hollywood's greatest stars. According to these whispered accounts, Lancaster's secret life was a who's who of the most famous faces of his generation. The legend says these weren't just fleeting encounters, they were deep, complex, and dangerous relationships with men who were just as famous, and just as terrified of exposure, as he was. As we dive into these alleged affairs, it's absolutely critical to remember that we are now entering the world of Hollywood rumor and closely guarded secrets. Concrete, verifiable evidence is basically non-existent, as the very survival of these men depended on their ability to leave no trace. What we have are stories, passed down through the years, that form a pattern of hidden lives running parallel to the public stories we all know. The first name on this secret list is maybe one of the most iconic in all of film history, Cary Grant. To the world, Cary Grant was the peak of suave, debonair charm. The man every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But behind the perfect suits and easy smile, Grant's private life was a subject of intense speculation for decades. His famously close relationship with actor Randolph Scott, with whom he shared a house for years, fueled rumors that followed him his entire life. Grant was obsessively private, a man who built a fortress around his personal life. The supposed connection between Lancaster and Grant is said to have begun in the late 1940s, right at the height of their fame. The story claims they met at an industry party, one of those glittering Hollywood affairs where deals were made and secrets were swapped in hushed tones. According to the accounts attributed to Lancaster's later years, he was immediately captivated. For Lancaster, who was seen as a rough-around-the-edges, working-class hero, Grant's polished elegance was an irresistible draw. The rumor is that the attraction was mutual, sparking a secret romance that was as passionate as it was perilous. Their alleged affair had to be managed with the precision of a military operation. In an era without social media or iPhones, secrecy was easier, but the stakes were infinitely higher. One wrong move, one whisper in Hedda Hopper's ear, could have ended both of their careers in a flash. Their meetings were supposedly confined to private homes, far from anyone who might talk. They were two of the biggest stars in the world, and their liaison was a seismic risk. The very image they sold to the public, Lancaster the rugged tough guy, Grant the ultimate ladies' man, would have been annihilated. The romance, as the story goes, was intense but doomed by the very secrecy it needed to exist. Cary Grant, more than almost anyone, was a master of image control. He was not going to risk the persona he'd so carefully built for anything or anyone. The constant fear of being found out reportedly wore on him, and he eventually pulled away. The relationship, according to these accounts, ended because Grant's need for security ultimately won out over his heart. While no mainstream biography of either star has ever confirmed this affair, the story persists, a tantalizing what-if, in the hidden history of Hollywood. If the alleged affair with Cary Grant was a story of elegance and impossible risk, the rumored connection between Burt Lancaster and Marlon Brando was a tale of raw, explosive chemistry and clashing egos. Brando was the rebel, the anti-hero who shattered the mold of the classic Hollywood leading man. He brought a brooding, mumbling intensity to the screen that was revolutionary. Unlike most of his peers, Brando was actually candid about his sexuality later in life, famously saying in a 1976 interview, "Like a large number of men, too, have had homosexual experiences and I am not ashamed." That openness from Brando is what makes the rumors of his involvement with Lancaster feel different. Here, the story isn't just about a secret, but about a collision of two titans. The narrative, pieced together from those same later-in-life accounts, describes an on-again, off-again affair that was as turbulent as it was passionate. The two men were contemporaries and rivals. Both were famous for their powerful physicality and intense screen presence. This professional rivalry is said to have fueled a powerful personal dynamic, a mix of admiration and competition that exploded into a fiery romance. This particular rumor suggests a connection that went beyond the physical. They were both complex, intelligent men who were deeply serious about their craft. You can imagine they would have recognized a kindred spirit in each other, a fellow artist trying to navigate the treacherous waters of fame. Their conversations were likely as intense as their physical encounters, filled with debates about acting, art, and the suffocating Hollywood machine. They both railed against, but the same huge personalities that might have drawn them together also reportedly drove them apart. Both Lancaster and Brando were famously strong-willed, used to being the most powerful person in any room. Two forces like that can't coexist peacefully for long. Their relationship was supposedly marked by explosive fights and equally passionate reconciliations. It was a volatile mix, and with the crushing weight of secrecy on top of it, it was unsustainable. The story goes that the affair eventually faded, not with a quiet retreat like with Grant, but with the burnout of a fire that simply raged too hot for too long. Again, while there is no definitive proof of a romance, the combination of Brando's known bisexuality and the persistent insider rumors creates one of the most compelling and believable chapters in Lancaster's alleged secret history. The story of Rock Hudson is maybe the most tragic and perfect example of that gilded cage. To the public, Hudson was the dream man of the 1950s and 60s. Impossibly handsome, tall, and gentle, the perfect romantic hero opposite Doris Day, the ideal of wholesome, all-American masculinity. His secret life was one of the most closely guarded in Hollywood history. For decades, he lived in constant, paralyzing fear of being outed, a fear that was tragically realized only in the final months of his life when his AIDS diagnosis forced his story into the open. His death in 1985 was a watershed moment, pulling back the curtain on both the AIDS crisis and the hidden reality of gay life in Hollywood. The rumored connection between Burt Lancaster and Rock Hudson is painted in softer, more empathetic tones. The story describes a relationship born not of fire or sophistication, but of a shared, unspoken understanding. They supposedly met in the early 1950s at Universal Studios. Their connection is said to have developed quietly, in places like the studio gym. Hudson, known for being kind and somewhat shy, would have found a very different partner in Lancaster than the volatile Brando or the guarded Grant. In this telling, Lancaster, who was older and more established, took on an almost mentor-like role. He might have recognized in the younger actor the same terror and isolation he himself had navigated. Their alleged affair was a quiet one, a safe harbor in the storm of their public lives. It was a space where two men, forced to wear masks of hypermasculinity for the world, could let them slip. The rumor suggests a relationship built on empathy and mutual support, a shared understanding of the insane pressure they were both under. They were playing the same dangerous game, and in each other, they found someone who understood the rules and the risks. Lancaster's own history lends some plausibility to this idea. He was known for being more progressive than many of his peers, often hiring and working with gay men he believed were the best, though he was always careful with his public words. This suggests a man who was, at the very least, comfortable with the gay subculture of Hollywood. The alleged relationship with Hudson fits this pattern, a quiet alliance built on respect and shared circumstances. While there is no concrete evidence to prove a romantic link, the story of their connection resonates because it speaks to a deeper truth about the era, the hidden networks of support that allowed closeted men to survive in an unforgiving world. Of all the names supposedly linked to Burt Lancaster, none is more shocking, more bizarre, or more dangerous than J. Edgar Hoover. As the director of the FBI for nearly 50 years, Hoover was one of the most powerful and feared men in America. He used secrets and information as weapons, building huge, confidential files on politicians, activists, and of course, Hollywood celebrities. He was the nation's self-appointed moral guardian, a man who could destroy lives with a single, strategically leaked piece of information. Ironically, Hoover himself was the subject of lifelong rumors about his own sexuality, especially concerning his intensely close relationship with his top aide, Clyde Tolson. Hoover was a man living in a glass house of his own making, projecting an image of fierce righteousness while allegedly engaging in the very behaviors he publicly condemned. The claim of a liaison between Lancaster and Hoover is by far the most outlandish and least substantiated of all these rumors. It exists on the absolute fringes of Hollywood lore, a story so strange it feels almost unbelievable. This wasn't a romance. If you believe these fringe accounts, it was a dark, complex dance of power, desire, and mutual risk. For Lancaster, a known liberal who was often critical of the government, any association with Hoover would have been playing with fire. For Hoover, a man whose entire career was built on an image of untouchable morality, a connection with a movie star would have been an unimaginable liability. It's vital to be extremely skeptical here. There is no credible evidence, not even the kind of persistent insider rumor that surrounds the other actors, to support this. It's a claim that pushes the boundaries of belief and may very well be pure fiction, woven into the mythology of Hollywood. However, the fact that this story even exists is significant. It serves as a powerful symbol of the hypocrisy and the dark, tangled secrets that defined the era. It suggests a world where anything was possible behind the closed doors of the powerful, and where the line between the guardian and the sinner was hopelessly blurred. Whether fact or fiction, the story of Lancaster and Hoover is a chilling reminder of the absolute power wielded by those who policed the private lives of others, often while hiding secrets of their own. So, what do we do with these stories? The tales of Burt Lancaster and his rumored secret romances with Cary Grant, Marlon Brando, and Rock Hudson. It's a narrative built almost entirely on hearsay, on retrospective accounts, and on the whispers that have echoed through Hollywood for decades. Let's be clear, there are no signed letters, no diary entries, no definitive confessions that can be proven. From a purely factual standpoint, the case may forever remain unsubstantiated, but to just dismiss these stories as gossip is to miss the deeper truth they represent. Whether every detail of every alleged affair is 100% accurate is almost beside the point. The real importance of this hidden history is what it tells us about the oppressive, suffocating reality of the Hollywood Golden Age. It reveals the immense pressure placed on anyone who dared to be different from the era's rigid social norms. It peels back the glamorous surface to show the fear, the isolation, and the deep emotional cost of living a lie. The story of Burt Lancaster's secret life is the story of an entire generation of artists who were forced to choose between who they were and what they did. Their loves were called illicit, their lives considered scandalous. The studio system, in its hunt for profit, erased their truths, forcing them into fake marriages and carefully scripted public lives that had nothing to do with their reality. These stories, true or not, are a powerful act of historical reclamation. They give a voice to the silences. They populate the shadows with real human beings who loved, and lost, and struggled under a system that refused to even see them. Burt Lancaster was the epitome of masculinity on screen, but his alleged secret history suggests a man of profound complexity. A man who navigated a treacherous world with courage and discretion. His legacy, seen through this lens, isn't just about his amazing movies, but about personal survival. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit when faced with overwhelming prejudice. These hidden histories change how we see the past. They remind us that behind every iconic image, there is a human story, often one far more complicated and interesting than the one we were told. The secrets of old Hollywood aren't just about scandal, they're about the fight to be yourself in a world that demands you be someone else. And in that fight, you'll find a story more dramatic and more powerful than anything they ever put on film. The golden age of Hollywood is full of stories that were deliberately buried. What are your thoughts on Burt Lancaster's alleged secret life? Do you believe these accounts, or do you think they're just Hollywood myths? Let us know what you think in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you found this look into Hollywood's hidden history as fascinating as we do, please give this video a thumbs up and think about subscribing to our channel. We have so many more secrets to uncover. Click that notification bell so you never miss another story that Hollywood never wanted you to know. Thanks for watching.